1. The roadside stranger, the knife-wielding maniac. In a small, forgotten village located along a quiet highway, a young couple was driving home one autumn evening after a party in a neighboring town. The fading daylight turned into darkness, and they didn't notice how quickly they veered off the main road and found themselves on a desolate stretch. Suddenly, out of nowhere, they saw a figure standing in the middle of the road. At first, it seemed like a person asking for help, but as they slowed down, the figure didn't move. The man stood unnervingly still, his hands hanging down by his sides, and his eyes were wide, empty, almost like he was waiting for them to come closer. The couple froze. The air was thick with tension. They thought it was odd, but after a brief hesitation, the driver rolled down the window to ask if the man needed assistance. In an instant, the figure lunged forward, revealing a knife dripping with fresh blood. Terrified, they sped away without looking back. Years later, the town's locals would whisper about the ghost of the road, but what was truly chilling was the discovery of a series of grisly murders in the area around that same stretch of highway. Authorities later concluded the man the couple had encountered was a notorious serial killer who had terrorized the region, preying on those unlucky enough to cross his path. 2. The Whispering Shadows, a tale of the urban legend that came to life. Urban legends often have their roots in truth, but sometimes they come to life in the most horrifying ways. It was the dead of night in a bustling city when a group of friends decided to test a local myth they'd heard for years, the legend of the Whispering Shadows. The story went like this. Late at night, if you walked into a certain old abandoned building on the outskirts of the city, you would hear faint whispers in the dark. The whispers were said to be from the souls of those who had vanished within its walls decades ago. Some even said the whispers called to you, luring you to your doom. Determined to prove it was just a story, the group of friends made their way to the decrepit building. They entered cautiously, their flashlights cutting through the thick darkness. As they explored the rooms, they laughed nervously, poking fun at the myth. But after a few minutes, things started to change. A low, unintelligible whisper echoed through the air. It grew louder with each step they took, as if the shadows themselves were coming to life. Then, one by one, the friends began to hear their names. The whispers were chillingly personal. One of the group members, the most skeptical, dared to investigate further. As he walked into the darkest room, he was never seen again. The remaining friends screamed and fled, but they couldn't shake the feeling that something was following them, something that had already claimed their friend. Later, when authorities went back to search for the missing boy, they found traces of old bloodstains and fragments of torn clothing, but no sign of him. Just more whispers in the air. Some say he became another part of the legend, lost to the building's haunting history. 3. The Stalker in the Woods, the killer who lived among the trees. There's something inherently unsettling about the woods at night, and one particular forest in the Midwestern U.S. had gained a terrible reputation. The locals called it Dead Man's Grove, and for good reason. The dense trees and eerie silence only added to the fear surrounding the place. It was a quiet night when a group of friends decided to hike through the forest to get to a secluded campsite. They had heard the warnings from locals, but they shrugged them off, eager to make their own memories. As they made their way deeper into the woods, one of them noticed a rustling in the bushes, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps. They froze, listening. The footsteps weren't theirs. Someone, or something, was following them. Panic set in as they tried to make their way back to the trail, but the feeling of being watched only grew stronger. Soon the rustling turned into louder sounds, and they realized the figure following them wasn't just some random animal. Suddenly, one of them screamed. A figure emerged from the shadows, an emaciated man, his face pale and hollow, his eyes wild with hunger. He was carrying a long, sharp knife, and there was something about his movements that were unnaturally fast and erratic. They ran, but the man chased them through the trees. One by one, he picked them off, his laughter echoing through the woods like a maniac's taunt. By the time authorities arrived the next morning, the forest was quiet again, and the man was nowhere to be found. The police later discovered that a local hermit, known for his strange behavior and bizarre rants, had been living in those woods for years. He had disappeared long before anyone realized, and his cabin was found to be filled with disturbing carvings and symbols. The murders remained unsolved, but some believe that his twisted legacy still lingers in Dead Man's Grove.